Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today as we unpack a topic that gets a lot of attention, but not always a lot of accuracy. Gen Z is talked about constantly in the workplace, often with strong opinions attached. So today's presentation is about stepping back and looking at what the expert actually tell us and what that means for employers and employees. So before we begin, it is important that we acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, and I want to give thanks for the opportunity to learn, work, and play on this beautiful land that we call home. This acknowledgement is not just practice. It means recognizing that work opportunity and systems of employment have not always been equally accessible to everyone, and it sets, I think, an important context for conversation about equity, inclusion, and the future of work. I every time I do a lunch and learn, I like to show this video. It's by the Calgary Foundation, and I think it's really worthwhile seeing.
What
Hopefully,
is
everyone can hear
land
it.
acknowledgement?
Those of us that are continuing our oral history are blessed. What we shared, that was told from way back.
Many, many years ago, my great uncle asked my grandfather, "How long have we been here?" He relayed a story about carrying a way of life as Niitsitapi, the Blackfoot speaking people. The prairie region was dominated by the prairie grizzly bear. The prairie grizzly bear said, "You have to make treaty with everything in this prairie land. The animals, the birds, the fish, the water, the hills, the rocks. They all live in beings." He said, "I will move to the southern region." And so they became Saukishitapi, the people of the plains, of the open country.
We were part of the ecosystem. We were not masters of it. The buffalo and the moose and the elk and the antelope and the deer and the grass and the trees were more than us.
We were raised to believe that everything has a spirit, and that everything around us is alive and has a purpose.
We praise Creator, giver of life. We give thanks to Mother Earth.
After we grow up from our biological mothers, the earth becomes our caregiver. Everything that we need is there.
And we're supposed to honor the Creator with all our life. And we're supposed to look after the gift of the land that He gave us to live on.
For us, the land tells us the story. It's just story after story. Oh, this happened here, this happened here, this happened over here.
Mokins, the story is Napi, the old man standing with his bow and his elbows on this side.
And that was how our warriors pictured the landscape.
All the tributaries run into the bow. It's the mother of all water that flows through.
The people came there. They asked, "What's the name of this river?" They said, "We cut our bow from the choke cherry trees. They're strong and powerful. We named this river the Bow, Namkhta."
I was born and raised in a road allowance, a strip of land that the farmers didn't want and the government didn't have no use for. Métis were just out on their own. We didn't belong anywhere. In Treaty 7 territory, I'm accepted, I'm something, and I'm with my people.
Because you're in the territory of your ancestors. No, this is home. It's something that we pass on to our children and to our grandchildren.
This land has to be acknowledged. The people that took care of this land for a long time have to be acknowledged. At least find the truth about us.
I'm a residential school survivor. But it's up to me to have courage and go back and learn the ways of my people. The elders will say, I pray that the young people will not forget the Creator, the true acknowledgement of the land every day.
We honor our ancestors by acknowledging Treaty 7 territory. We acknowledge the Treaty 7 nations, the Piikani First Nation, the Siksika First Nation, the Kainai First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, Chiniki, Bearspaw, Goodstoney, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. We acknowledge the ancestral territory of the Siksika Sitapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, and the home of the Otepimsiwak Métis government of the Métis Nation, District 5 and 6.
Yeah, I really like that video. I think it gives an interesting perspective, and not only the words that are said, but also the images that are being shown. Yeah, I just really, really like it. So let's go into the lunch and learn more of the topic. First, I want to introduce Goodwill and my program. So the program that I'm working and that is hosting this lunch and learn is called Youth at Work. So Youth at Work is an employer support program designed to help Calgary businesses confidently hire and retain young workers who may face barriers to employment. We keep this very general because our goal is to help as many youth as possible, no matter what barrier they may face. So, some examples that I provide could be, maybe they face mental health challenges, or maybe they're newcomers. They may identify as having a disability, or be, youth of color. I like to think that pretty much anything that may be considered a barrier to the person, we would try to support employers in supporting that. Youth at Work exists because many employers want to hire young people, but feel unsure how to support them well once they arrive. We focus on practical employer-facing supports, which includes onboarding, communication, retention, and manager confidence. We're not a placement programs, meaning that we don't train youth directly, but we work alongside employers to strengthen the systems around young workers. And so kind of making them feel more welcome and included once they are actually in the workplace. Since the creation of this program, one thing that has been very important to me is being flexible while working alongside employers. While some employers want hands-on coaching, others may just want resources that they can pull from whenever they need. And so that's why Youth at Work is not a one-size-fits-all program. And the goal is really to meet employers where they're at to help reduce friction, turnover, and uncertainty when hiring youth. We're going to jump right in onto our topic today, which is Gen Z and then in the workplace. So most of us have heard these labels before, lazy, entitled, uncommitment. You hear young people today are so lazy. They're so entitled, they can't commit to anything. And that could come from colleagues or it could come from peers. What is important to note is that many of these claims come from frustration or cultural mismatch, and they're not actually true. Why is this? Because when expectations between generations are misaligned, it often shows up as judgment rather than curiosity. So what does work ethic mean? Historically, work ethic was shaped in a very different economic reality. Long hours, being visibly busy, and unquestioned loyalty were sign of commitment. While that model worked in a time when jobs were more stable and rewards were more predictable, those conditions no longer exist in the same way. Gen Z did not enter the workforce during a period of stability. As we know, a lot of Gen Z would have graduated university in 2019, 2018, 2019, 2020, or the younger ones, graduated high school in 2019, 2020, 2021. And so we know what that period was. And so they enter the workplace in a period of instability. So starting working during or right after major disruptions. And, they also grow up watching layoffs, rising housing costs and constant change. And, that leads you to be cautious. And that caution often gets mislabeled as lack of commitment, when really what it is adaptation. So what does data not show? Research does not support the idea that Gen Z is less capable or less driven. What has changed is how effort is expressed. So effort might look like efficiency, boundary setting, or selective engagement rather than overextension. So what you probably won't find is someone working 10 hours unpaid just to show that they're there and willing to work, because Gen Z now, and there's a video that I will show later, but Gen Z really value work-life balance. They really want to avoid burnout, especially with mental health challenges rising and anxiety rising, depression rising. They want to make sure that they have a separation between work and home. So motivation is conditional. Motivation for Gen Z is highly responsive to their environment. When expectations are clear and growth is visible, engagement tends to be strong. When feedback disappears or role feels stagnant, disengagement happens really quickly. And this is not about attitude, it's more about the signals coming from the workplace, even if it's unintentional. Purpose-driven performance. This is also a very important thing for Gen Z. And purpose does not mean that every job needs to be deeply meaningful or that every part of the job needs to be deeply meaningful. There are going to be part of one's job description that maybe people are not really passionate about or don't find fun, and that's just having a job. But like what the slide is getting at is understanding how effort connects to outcome and how you can put purpose in there, how you can make the young worker feel like their job has purpose and it's actually making a difference. Because Gen Z wants to know what success looks like and how their work fits into the bigger picture. When that connection is missing, performance often drops. Flexibility. This is also a big topic of contention. So flexibility often misunderstood as lack of structure. And I was actually watching some videos this morning to, try and put myself up for this. And I saw a video of a TED Talk of this woman that was talking about how flexibility is good. how things are changing and how, for example, the hybrid work model is not something that's difficult for Gen Z. And she used the example that was like, fish, when they're in the water, they don't know they're swimming, they just swim. So Gen Z have a natural ability to implement the hybrid workplace because for them it's just natural. Again, these are people that were in school during COVID when classes were online, when like you couldn't hang out with people, so you had to like meet over Zoom or over Teams or FaceTime. So for like younger workers, this is just something that's normal, while maybe for more senior workers it's something that you need to get used to. And that actually like plays into the flexibility part. And I know that a lot of workplaces are going back to an in-person only work model, which is fine if that's what works for your organization, but I don't think that the hybrid work model is bad per se. For Gen Z, flexibility also communicates trust. So when trust is present, accountability increases. And outcome-based expectations is also something that I hear a lot of Gen Z talk about. And it resonates to them more about the rigid rules of, you clock in at 9 and you clock out at 5, and that's your work like that's your work day. Whatever you get done within that work day, that's good. Especially because Gen Z is very well versed with tools and technology, and like I find that a lot of the time, you see young people that are like, well, today is Wednesday and I finished all of my jobs for the week. And so now I have to, be at work and try and fill in my time rather than, having like a more flexible time where maybe I could work maybe separate hours. And again, this is all something that one should talk about with their employers, but there are a lot of different ways in which flexibility can happen. And it's not only, again, not only like in the workplace or in the work hybrid or in person or remote, it's also in the hours and in kind of like the projects and work that it actually needs to be done. I feel like I went a little bit on a tangent there, but we're just going to go forward with the slides. So the next one is job hopping. Job hopping is kind of like a difficult topic to talk about a little bit, because as a Gen Z, I feel like I want to defend Gen Zs, but it is true. I feel like a lot of Gen Zs do job hop around, and I don't know what that is. I mean, I know why people say that is, but I don't know if that's the real truth or the entire truth. So while job hopping is often framed as disloyalty, a Gen Z find it more of a risk management. So if growth stalls or burnout is rising, leaving does feel like the best option. This pattern usually tells us more about the workplace condition than about the individual's character. And when I talk about this, I am generalizing. Of course, there are people who, maybe are not interested in growing with a company. But I feel like for the most part, that fear of being let go is bigger than taking control and leaving themselves. So burnout and mental health. This is also a very big one. Gen Z is by now well known for talking more openly about stress and burnout, which can sometimes be uncomfortable for workplaces that are used to silence or kind of like treat that topic as taboo. And it's a hard thing because I hear a lot of older generation saying that we're so fragile for being so, for the mental health crisis that's happening right now. And I actually don't think that that is being fragile. I think that's being reflective and having an awareness of what Gen Z is feeling and what the people around us are feeling, what challenges we're going through. And this is something that I think a lot of people need to know, that ignoring burnout does not make it go away. Okay, addressing it is what is the only way that you can fix it. Productivity looks different. This is something I was trying to mention earlier. Being busy and being productive are not the same thing. Gen Z tends to prioritize tools, efficiencies, and outcomes. This can clash with workplaces that equate visibility with value. So the challenge for employers is learning how to measure contribution differently. Okay, so the real friction point. Most tension is not about attitude, and this is for both ways, for both employers and employees. Not about attitude. It's about unclear expectations and management styles that rely on control rather than clarity. When expectations, feedback, and support are consistent, many perceived issues fade quickly. So like I said here, coaching and clarity outperform control. So Gen Z's version of work ethic. For Gen Z, work ethic shows up through learning, efficiency, and boundaries. Your loyalty is often tied to growth and respect rather than tenure. It is not a weaker model of work ethic, it is a different one, which is shaped by our current realities that we're facing today. So why should employers care? Misunderstanding just Gen Z does not just affect young workers, it impacts managers, teams, supervisors, and retention costs. So when employers adapt their approach, they often see benefits across generations and not just with youth. So to wrap up, kind of like my presentation part, which again was very quick, but I think I'm a very fast talker. So to wrap up, Gen Z is not rejecting work. They are rejecting the outdated definitions of it. As the labor market continues to change, the workplaces that adapt will be the ones that attract and retain talent across all ages. I have a video here, and it's relevant, but it's not gonna be super heavy. But I think it's a good one because it shows the perspective of a Gen Zer and the perspective of a baby boomer, and kind of like two different levels of work experience and kind of like their points of view. So I thought this was really interesting.
If you had,
Okay, I'm just gonna skip to like where it starts. Okay.
what misconceptions do you think people have about the way your generation works?
Well, I think the easy one is Gen Zers can be seen as lazy or not willing to work as hard.
And that technology is doing all the work for us, which I don't think is the case. Kind of like a get in, get out mentality of like, I'm just here to get money and I don't care about anything else. I think it's just a little bit of a pushback against like companies that ask for a lot more work for the same amount of pay.
I don't feel like Gen Zers are lazy at all. I think they're full of ambition, but it's just in a different way. It's maybe more myopic. I don't know, like, not what's good for the company, but what works for me.
The boomer generation and older people tended to place more emphasis on work and position and promotions and those kinds of things.
I think the work-life balance is a little different now.
Yeah.
And we were like, growing up, we were able to see that in our parents and grandparents and just how much they worked and how much stress that they were under. And I think a lot of us just don't want the pressure of that.
We, as Gen Z, have a fear of being given way too much if we express too much curiosity and intelligence, I guess. And so I understand where like our fear is with that.
I've seen that just as being female. Women feel like if they say no, that it's going to hurt their career. And so they say yes, 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 until they have way too much on their plate. It's very important to learn when to pull back.
Probably nothing drives a boomer more crazy than when a younger person grabs the mouse or grabs their phone and says, let me do this for you.
Someone said to me, no one would expect you to know Excel as well as you do because of your age and your gender.
Really? They said that to your face?
Yeah, but it was just in fun. Gen Zers might not see that baby boomers do want to move forward with technology.
We should probably be a little more patient and understanding, like you said, like we grew up with this technology, and you guys, like, it came in the middle of your lives, and you've had to like adapt to it.
Do you believe loyalty exists in the corporate world?
Maybe less so in this day and age. Nowadays, it very much feels like this corporate greed.
I've never felt like I needed to be loyal to a company for any reason. Being loyal to a company can get you to places to an extent, like climbing up the corporate ladder or making connections or keeping the connections you've had for a really long time. I wouldn't sacrifice my own morals or my own wants and needs for a company's.
Maybe employees are now just an expendable resource to some of these bigger corporations.
I go back to my earlier careers, and you really felt safe all the time. And as time moved forward through the 90s and the dot-com bubble and all the other things that started to happen, it felt more and more like it was the corporations were less loyal, therefore we will be less loyal.
I feel like Gen Z feels that so hard. I've been laid off multiple times and I'd only been at the position 3 months. It's that Gen Z worry of being exploited or cut off with no notice that it's like, I don't want to put my everything into it.
I have felt in the past when I've had to give a name and have someone laid off that I've been disloyal to that person. It's painful.
I think Gen Z looks at layoffs as a lot more of an evil. You know, why can't that company be loyal to these employees? And I think boomers look at layoffs as, we've got a business to run. If we're not solvent, if we don't get our expenses under control, we're not going to be around to allow anybody to have any jobs.
Job security is a hard and scary thing that a lot of people go through. Your job can now be taken over by AI. There is just no guarantee that your position is safe. I don't think people even have the opportunity to be loyal to a company if they even wanted to.
Do you think your generation has it easier than mine?
No. No, we're the ones that, walked uphill 10 miles in the snow to school.
I think as far as a career goes, I think that boomers had it a bit harder than Gen Zs. I think there was more demand on them, on their time. It was so much less flexible.
I would argue that the job market is a little bit harder now. Like going to college and getting a degree, it doesn't pay off as much as it used to. These entry-level jobs they can't get because they don't have the experience.
We went through a recession in 1980 and 1981, but then we had the Great Recession in 07 and 08, and we were going, uh-oh, everybody's shutting down, there's no jobs, what are we going to do? So I think every generation goes through these waves. Right now, I'd agree the job market's a bit rough.
I do think people think that this generation has it easier because of all of the advancements, but I don't think it's easier. There's like this pressure to make 6 figures by 22 and graduate in 4 years, and you have to do all these things while you're young, and I think that we're just always worried about not being good enough or not being on the right track.
Do you think companies owe their employees anything beyond a paycheck?
Yeah, a paycheck is great, but you're telling me I can't take a day off because I'm tired or I'm sick. Like, I think sometimes employers think that they own you and they forget that you're human. I just wish there was more of a work-life balance. And I think employers could aid to that by being a little bit more understanding and compassionate.
I think companies should prioritize and invest in their employees' mental health. I mean, I've heard of studies they've done in Europe where they did like a 4-day work week. And even though they had a whole extra day that they weren't working, their productivity statistically increased.
4-day work week, terrible idea, terrible idea. Working is a good thing. You know, to think that, well, how do we taper it down? How do we do, it comes across to me as, how do we do less work? I don't think it's that good for society.
If I can work a 4-day work week and get just as much done as I would in a 5-day work week,
I would think you're a magician. If you get that done in 4 days and you tell me that you normally would have been 5 days, I'd take that 5th day and I'd say, okay, so now what could you get done? Well, you'd get done more. I don't think it's realistic to think I could do as much in 4 days as I could do in 5 days.
Future employers expect you to get a lot of experience from previous jobs, and if they aren't willing to give you those experiences and throw you in the deep end, or at least teach you, mentor you a little bit, then there's not a lot to gain from that experience or that position.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of the people I manage are entry level, and I feel like it's my job to launch them.
Yeah.
Whatever their career goals are, even if they're outside of what they're currently doing or outside the scope or whatever, I want to help them get there. And I feel like that's what employers really do owe their employees besides the paycheck.
So I'm a hard yes that companies owe a lot more. If you look at what motivates employees, money and the paycheck are really far down on the list. You know, so for somebody to feel valued at work, to feel that they get the recognition that they deserve, not only from their boss, but from their boss's boss and their peers, is huge.
Just recognition or just making that known and nothing beyond that almost doesn't really mean much to me. If I'm looking at this company and let's say that project I did made all this money to them, like I would almost want to see like a little piece of that.
One of the challenges with money is it is so short term. So if somebody comes and says, hey, here's $100 for that project that you completed, or $1,000, whatever it is, you're pretty happy, but you're happy for about a week, and then you spent the money and you've kind of forgotten about that. I think regular recognition, where inside you know, my boss values what I do, he or she values the contribution that I make, I think that's something that creates a whole lot more loyalty between a company and an employee. Kind of going back to our original question, do we owe those employees something more than a paycheck? I absolutely think we do, and I think they're going to come to expect it more, and I think companies and people that manage teams need to step up and deliver those things.
What motivates you more, money, passion, or stability?
The thing that motivates me more than anything else is seeing the people around me thrive. The passion of the people around me is what drives me.
At least at this point in my life, super easy, I'd jump to passion. I think that's the thing that from day one can be motivating to, you know, the day they put you in the ground.
I agree to an extent. I think I want passion to be the driver, but the way that the cost of living is just so expensive, it's like I kind of have to put that aside and really just be money driven.
If I had more money, I could have a house. I feel like I could provide more for a family. I think that, I guess this is getting into kind of another topic, but I just think like my value as a man is somewhat tied to the amount of money I have. It just opens a lot of doors that I may not have access to right now.
Oh, I like this one. This is a fun question. You ready to rock?
I'm scared.
No, don't be scared. I got you. In the most unfiltered, uncensored way possible, what's the worst thing about my generation?
I feel like we don't need to listen to that. I feel like, yeah. I feel like that's okay. Anyway, that was kind of like a quicker presentation than I thought it would be, but you know, if you do have any questions, or you know, and if you want to ask any questions right now, awesome. If you want to email me a question, that's also awesome. My email is the second email on the slide, so bpetrini@goodwill.ib.ca. And yeah, I also have a little kind of feedback form, just because this is my first lunch and learn with the new program with Youth at Work. I think I would like to get some feedback, kind of see what topics people are interested in, so that I can, plan accordingly and hopefully plan something that's interesting to people. I will actually share the link right away here on in the chat. Okay. All right, so here is the feedback form. And I see Jackie has what research is being referenced. I actually have it sourced in, or like quoted in each slide, but if you want, I can actually send you the links and the references. I think I should have your email, so I can send you a list of the sources I used. Yes, I will definitely have a copy of I will definitely have a recording, and usually what Goodwill does is post it on YouTube, so then we can definitely get you a link to the YouTube. I'm actually gonna write it down to send you the link. I don't know if this is a Gen Z thing, but my memory is not very good, so. Thank you, guys. Yeah, again, if you get the chance to fill out the form, that would be awesome. Maybe actually I'll put this back on. So if you want to just scan it, that's also good. Yeah, and again, if you have any questions that you just want to email me, you can just email me. I actually have access to both those email addresses. So, while the bpetrini is my direct email, I can also access the Youth at Work one. Okay, if no one else has any questions, I think we can say goodbye, and yeah, hope you guys have a good lunch.
Thank you, Bear.
All right.